All right. Well, thank you for coming in. Could you please start by just stating your full name and what branch of the service you were in?
My full name is Kathryn Virginia Conkling, and branch of service is Army Air Corps.
All right. So to start off, could you tell me a little bit about your early life? Where were you born? What was your childhood like?
Well, that's a good story. Okay. I was born in Kansas. My father was German. And my mother was a Coleman. And so I did my research. And my Coleman line goes back to the American Revolution. And so I know that. And my father was the German, and his family had immigrated to Wisconsin in the mid-1800s and stuff. And so I had met my husband when I was in Wichita after I got out of high school. When I graduated from high school, there weren't any jobs in Wichita, and so I got a job in Wisconsin. A cousin was down here visiting, so she gave me a ride back. So we have jobs up there, so I found a job up there. Extended really good salaries, you know, like $20 or $21 a month. But that was enough. Of course, then stuff was cheap and stuff. So anyway, I was from a poor family. And so consequently, I knew I had to fend for myself. And so in high school, I ate because I took care of kids after school, and Saturdays and Sundays for my meals, and $1 a week.
Wow.
So that's why I found out it was, to me, was a great idea to go ahead and accept the deal going into the military, because I had cousins and family in the military, and so it was not a bad choice for me. It was fine.
Was there anything that inspired you to enlist?
The which?
Anything that inspired you to enlist in the Army?
Well, they wanted to test me because Congress says they didn't want you to be interested unless you had a job. They wanted people who had employed and knew how to do something. So then I applied for that ad in the paper, and so I got the bus ticket and stuff to Milwaukee for a weekend. They put us up in a hotel. They gave us every kind of aptitude test, IQ test, a physical. The FBI says we were good character and so forth. So on the last day, they called off names, and they says, well, you all can leave, but we'll get in touch with you at a later date, but not today. The rest of you stay because I want to talk to you. So when they left, the others left, why? He just kind of looked at us, says, we really like what you have to offer. And he grinned and says, could we swear you in today? And we said, yeah, we giggled. And so we were sworn into the Army Air Corps.
Wow, that's amazing.
September the 18th, 9 months after Pearl Harbor. Not a bad choice.
Do you remember where you were when the attack on Pearl Harbor happened?
Yes. I was in Wisconsin, and my cousins and I, my girl cousins, had gone to visit my aunt because my other cousin was in the military and Preston was coming home for the weekend. And so we wanted to see Preston. And so we went to Horicon, Wisconsin to see my aunt and uncle and see Preston. And so on our way back, because he had to go back to camp and stuff, so when we got into Milwaukee, an SPA, because we had to change buses and stuff, we had to go where we were going, and he had to catch the bus going back to base and stuff. So the SP came up to him and says, wanted to know where he was stationed. And he says, okay, your leave has been canceled. You must report back to base immediately. Do not leave the station. You are back to duty now. Get back to camp. And so we said goodbye to Preston, and we got our bus, and so we waved to Preston. And so that night on the thing is when the president came on and said Pearl Harbor had been bombed.
Wow. So, can you tell me a little bit about your role in the war, what you did in your unit, what a typical day might have looked like for you?
For what?
While you were enlisted in the Army Air Corps, what exactly was your role in your unit?
Well, after basic, which wasn't much because they didn't have, we had our brains, that's why they wanted us and stuff, so that didn't bother. They just went over Army regulations with us because that's what I liked. What they say, this is what you do, period, and stuff, so that was good. I like regulations. I like knowing what I can do, what I cannot do, and stuff, so that was neat. And so there was nothing there because they didn't do anything in basic training and stuff. Of course, it really wasn't basic because it was a cavalry camp. Fort Des Moines was cavalry, had nothing to do with war stuff now and stuff. So we were just there, and when we did that, they put us on a train, and whatever group that they had there at the same time I was, they made us into a company. And so we knew that we were going to be all together and stuff. So we were sent to Miami because our base was to have been Orlando, Florida, but our facilities hadn't been finished yet. So we were in Miami, and we worked with Aircraft Warning Service because they had volunteers during the war that, at the start of the war there, that kept track of any airplanes that were flying, and they would chart them. And then they had officers to be sure that's the regular planes that are posted that they are flying, and not something else coming in out of the country and stuff. So we did that, and so there, my officer says, Katie, I need to have you help me do something. I says, okay, what would you like? And so do this, do that, and so help me do this, because I don't know what to do. Because she was a college graduate, her first position, period, that she was going to be over this batch of women. So she wasn't much older than us and such, so I was signed up to her, so I was really part of her cadre. And so that's when she says, you really have to help me do these things and so forth. So we could communicate and so forth. So she knew what I knew because she had seen all my test scores. She knows I either a dummy or I had a brain and stuff. So anyway, so she assigned me things to do, and I always laughed and said, I'm the whatever person and stuff. So next course, run to the door. And so she would give me something to do, and I would just, I think that would make a good room for that, such and such, and says, see what you can do. I says, okay. And I would just go ahead and do it. She would not ask me how I did it and so forth. And then whatever things I had, so she got so that after that, if somebody came up to her with a complaint about this and isn't working or that isn't working and so forth, don't bother me. Go find Katie. She'll know what to do. And so that's what was me. I was a whatever person. And so that's kind of the stuff way we set out. She trusted me, using my common sense and telling them what to do, because my test scores covered regular curriculum and my mechanical ability, common sense, and all of that. And so she used that from that because she could go through the chart to see what I made on my scores. And so that's why I was administrative specialist, because I could do anything. So that's what I enjoyed.
Oh, that's great. So you mentioned that you were in Miami, is that right? Is that where you were for all of the war? Were you in Miami?
Yeah, say again.
Did you say you were down in Florida? Is that
yeah.
right?
Yeah, we were in Orlando, Florida.
Orlando, I'm sorry.
See, we're supposed to open up Orlando, Florida, and work in the offices, but our buildings weren't ready yet. So they sent us to Miami to help give the aircraft warning service that had a night shift, and we took over the night shift until our buildings were done. So after supper, we did the night shift for them and charted all the flights that were flying over Florida. People would call us in because they were all volunteers, and so they would chart it on an app because they had little bip things that they could do that.
Great. Were you ever stationed anywhere else, or was it just Florida?
Well, I'm just in Florida. By that, because I was at Orlando, and then they got a notice one day that she had me come in. She says, "Katie, guess what? Somebody wants you." What? And I says, "Well, we just got a reference here. They want to have you transferred immediately to California." I says, "For what?" "Because they are starting up a new unit there, and they wanted you because of your qualifications." So I says, "I didn't know what my qualifications are, other than all my tests and stuff." So I says, "Oh, that would be fun." So I said, "That's all right with me." And so I was immediately put on a train to California. And I know that this unit then, as soon as we got there, the rest of us were all kind of quizzical too. But then we were all really the Army, Women's Army, WAAC and stuff. So when we got there, they just got a note where we were to report on that base the next day and stuff. So I went there, and I was told to report to the post office, to the postmaster. So he says, "Well, they sent you," said, "I don't know what you have to do, but I'm supposed to tell you how a post office runs," and so forth. And so that's what he did. He started from being his job, every job in the post office, including all the regulations that are required by the government. And he says, and also the Army post offices too were covered in that, so I had that too. So I says, "Okay, that's fine." And so put on a train, went to California.
Wow.
And so there, actually they just had this all, because they already had us in a cubbyhole, what we were going to do, where we were going. They knew exactly what they were going to do with us. So there we got ready for packing up, packed up all our stuff, taken to San Francisco, and put on a boat, and it was a troop ship. We had no idea where we were going to go, and so we went out. They never told us where we were going. When we were on the troop ship with CBs and Red Cross workers. So we were guessing we're either going to go probably maybe to Alaska or someplace else along the coast, but it wasn't that. We were on there for 5 days and nights, and here we started coming up to this beautiful island with a big tower, and we found out when we got going there. It was Aloha Tower in Hawaii. And so we landed there. The buses came and picked us up and took us to Hickam Field. So then we knew we had arrived. That's where they wanted us.
How long were you in Hawaii?
A year and a half.
What did you think of it? Did you like it there?
Yes and no. You get sick and tired of the same thing day in and day out. It's like Kansas. At least we have a respite. We say, oh yeah, Kansas. Every day's a gift. We never know what we're going to get. And so that's my attitude. But there, it's the same. I would not want to live there permanently. Travel, not even in Florida, because you get so sick of it. I like the differences in the seasons. But one thing too I liked about the military is I finally got to learn some sports. When I was in high school here in Wichita, I had to work after school, and then Saturdays and Sundays I could not participate in any sports. I'd never played softball, I'd never played basketball or anything. My bunch said, we'll teach you. And so they taught me softball, so I was on the softball team and the basketball and such. So I was the catcher on the softball team, or played center field. I alternated back and forth because there was another gal as short as me. When she came over a little bit later than I was there and such, so we switched it back and forth. We liked that and such. And then we did that same thing in basketball. So I enjoyed doing it. I had never played those sports in school because I was taking care of kids for my meals and to earn $1 a week. And I was glad I was gone from what I had here. I consider that's me stepping out.
So it sounds like you enjoyed a lot of parts of your service. Did you make any good friends?
What?
Did you make any good friends during your time serving?
Oh yeah, the girls I was with all the time, yes. Oh yes. We were a group, because after we practiced and so forth, and of course then like in our softball and such, we had some famous players in Hawaii, Joe DiMaggio and Pee Wee Reese and some others, and they would stop by sometime just to give us pointers and stuff, which was fun. To these people of notoriety wanted to help us and so, but I enjoyed that because something I had never gotten to, I could never have done before. And see, that was part of my new life.
Oh, that's great.
And so actually, I love that. But yes, I was from a poor family. My father died when I was a year old, so I never knew my father. And my mother put us in the Wichita Children's Home, that Wichita Children's Home. And so, my mother never ever hugged me. She never ever kissed me. She could care less. And so they kept bugging her. You have to pay something for their care, because I had 3 brothers that were there and me. And so, well, I did know that some of my relatives were Masons, and they were paying money, but she was keeping it herself instead of paying for us. And so I found that out after I left the home, when we had a reunion. I got to read all my records they had on me from the time I was put in there, what measles or whatever I had, and such, and all the things that she did. Not good. So So that's why I am me, because of me. I do what I like, what I want.
Wow, that's great. So, were there any,
And I like the military because I have food, clothing, everything is there. Like at the children's home, food, clothing, and I love the matron there because she always had me help her do things, and I liked them. But see, I went from that secure to another secure.
can you remember any times during your service when you felt afraid? Were there any like dangerous situations that you were in?
I love my situation. I loved everything I did. I was appreciated because I knew I could do anything because get Katie, she'll know what to do. But see, I was an extensive reader when I was small. And that's why when I had to get away from my mother from hollering and screaming at me, I went to the library. I lived in the library. I read books, start at one end, go to the other. I loved mysteries, figure things out. And then the other room across the hall, the library here in Wichita, that old Carnegie one, I know where everything was at that time, because that really reminds me of that, because across the hall was all the magazines. I love to go through magazines, see things, and it have pictures like something, how to fix things. Oh, that was interesting. See, I would just see, when you go through these things, they stay. So that's how I got my grades. Can do.
Mm-hmm. So, do you remember where you were when you found out that the war was over?
Was over?
Yeah, like Victory in Japan Day. Do you remember that?
Oh, sure. The gal and I that always went to breakfast together, Napoli, her name was, we call her Napoli for short. But when it was about time to wake up, I'd raise my head up because I had my bed out to the aisle and hers was out to the aisle, and my head would go up, her head would go up. That meant, let's go to breakfast. And so we'd get up and get dressed and go to breakfast. So we had seersucker outfits that were our things that we worked in. And so we'd just slip those on and we'd be the first ones at breakfast. And we'd go to breakfast. And when we went out the door, Pearl Harbor was shooting off flares like mad. What are they doing? Hurry up, let's go. And so we knew scuttlebutt in the military is in the mess hall. If you ever want to find out anything, go to the mess hall. It's there. And so we just stepped inside the door and we said, what? And this says, Japs gave up.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so everybody was so happy. And of course, everybody was off duty. They were allowed to celebrate, except for any non-com that was the non-com of their office had to go to duty. So I had to go to duty because I was non-com of my office, because I had to open that pouch from Washington. So that was how we knew that. And so as soon as that was over, see, we were only enlisted for the duration of hostilities plus 6 plus or minus 6 months at the oh, I forget what term it is. Every so often I have to go look it up again, but they said at the whatever it is of the president that he's going to be and say it's over. So that was how that happened.
Do you remember what it was like when you went home after the war?
It went?
Do you remember what it was like when you went home?
I went home?
Yeah, like when you came back to Kansas, or...
Oh, I didn't come back to Kansas. No, I went back to Wisconsin where my cousins were and stuff. So, and then I got, the war had ended in Europe, and of course, John, who I had known here in Kansas before, because he got drafted, and he was drafted about the same time I left Kansas and stuff, and we'd always kept in touch. And so about that same time then, I got a telegram from him. He says, I'm back in the States and stuff. So a telegram from out of the States for an APO goes by telegraph to my APO address, and then it goes to me as a mail.
Do you remember any particularly like funny or unusual stories that happened while you were serving?
Oh, we just had a lot of fun. We always celebrated Christmas. We had one gal that she was a swimmer and a diver, very large gal. When she cut the water, and she knew if she wanted to go practice her diving and swim, she would come looking for me if she couldn't find. Katie will go to the pool with her, and she knew I would go to the pool with her, because then I usually would just float around and watch her dive, because she's a big person, but she could just cut that water. But see, in sports, you help them because they won't open it for one person, but for the others, see, because we had it certain nights a week at the pool at Higham Field. And then one other thing too, in the military, we always knew exactly what was happening in our theater. We knew what was happening in the Pacific. I knew a lot because I opened mail that I was privy to and stuff. But we had, what did we used to call that? And it was required that we all go to attend to that. They tell us what we're doing in the Pacific. They also will give us a resume of what's happening in Europe, because we're concerned about this, because we're all connected in the Pacific, so the other is that too, so that we knew that too. But that was neat, because in the military, you don't have to read it in the paper or listen to it on the news. That's what the intelligence officers do for you. Because you have the best of everything.
Yeah, for sure. Were there any lessons you would say that you learned from your military service, or any changes in yourself?
Oh no, we just laughed about that because, in the service, we have a chaplain. There's a fun thing there. Have any complaints, you have a little card. It's called TS card. Oh, the TS card. Oh, don't you have a TS card? Oh, you gotta have a TS card. Okay, so everybody had a TS card. This is the fun part, because TS stands for T in sympathy, because it's like going to the take to the chaplain to have it punched, because you can always go to the chaplain and talk to the chaplain. You can always go to the intelligence officer, tell them what you don't like. If somebody is not, see, one thing too about regulations, we know the regulations. If we know somebody is absolutely breaking resolution and not doing it right, if you don't turn them in, you are the one that's guilty. And so we are very strict about regulations. You follow that's what they're for. And if they break down, everything breaks down. It's got to be run. It goes just like that, all together. And that's what I like about the military, because anybody that likes it, it just goes like clockwork and stuff, so. You don't know that and you keep shaking your head, yeah. But it is, and that's why people like it, because we know there's a rule and regulation. It goes this way. Yes. And that's the way I am. I am very strict.
Great. Could you tell me about the stripes that you're wearing on your shirt? Can you tell me what those are for?
What the which?
The stripes that you're wearing on your shirt. Could you tell us about that?
These are my medals. These I can wear. They were worn over this pocket. They have rank and stuff. This first one is my, it's green and white. It's WAAC, the first women. We lasted 1 year. We proved that, yes, women could do anything. And then all the others of the Congress said, hey, yeah, it worked. So the others immediately, they all signed up. They wanted the WAACs, they wanted the Marines, they wanted the Navy, and that. So my next one is my Asiatic Pacific. My discharge papers. Our discharge papers has our whole history on it. And if we left the States, what date did we leave? What date did we get back? What was our assignment? What was your MOS, your military occupational system thing and stuff? So that our whole history is on our discharge papers. It's also on our arm. Where are you assigned to? Star, Army Air Corps. Rank. What is it? If it had rockers, yeah, you were non-com. You had authority. You had authority up through, if you, less than sergeant, you really didn't have any authority for anything. And so, if you were assigned a corporal, you don't have, it's not any good. You can't do anything. But as soon as you become a sergeant, you have authority. And then when you get that rocker on the bottom, then you become a non-commissioned officer. And so that is the next one too. So when I was there, the day that I got my rocker, the guy who I worked with, he got his travel orders. I took his job. See, that's what we were for. Replace men for active duty. He was reassigned back to the States for reassignment. I don't know what happened to him. But I had his job. But then the war ended.
So what was the highest rank that you earned during your time in service?
I'm Staff Sergeant.
Staff Sergeant. Wow.
That's one rocker under the sergeant. They said if I stayed another month, I would get the other rocker. I says, no, that's kind of ridiculous to do that, because they're just doing it because they're going to be shifting us all around, because they started sending us out. So they just went ahead and they finished sending me back to the States. That they sent me to Fort Sheridan up in the Great Lakes area, because that's where I started out. That's where I was sworn in the Great Lakes area. No, there's a lot to military people don't understand that, but it's a family. And it really is. They'll do anything for each other. One thing that was really interesting You know, we kept up with the war by going to our classes to what they kept feeding us about how our working, and when the nurses were gotten out of the Bataan and Corregidor, because they had taken the nurses there prisoners, so they were American nurses at Bataan and Corregidor, and the Japs had them. So after it was retaken in the Philippines, MacArthur and them, and they brought them to Hawaii because their clothes were practically, they tried to patch and whatever. And so when they came, we washed their hair, we fixed their hair, we did their nails. They hadn't had that done for years and stuff. And we had one gal that was a beautician. She had her own shop. So we had a little shop and stuff. Of course, everybody else, the civilians on base like to try to use our stuff, but no, that's ours and stuff. But we took care of the nurses, and they brought the new uniforms for them, so they would look nice when they got off of the plane, when they were flown back to California. And so that was nice. But one thing they told us, you can listen to them, they can talk to you. Do not ask them questions, because we have not had a chance to debrief them. We want to debrief them. We don't want you to ask them any questions. So we did not ask a question, we listened. And so that was good, because that's what they wanted, because when they're debriefing them, they go into this like you're doing, finding out what happened in this and that and the other. But that was nice, but to get to meet them and then see the newsreels that they had landed in the States and so forth, the nurses from Bataan and Corregidor. But it's nice being in on history. Of course, all of it's history. Mm-hmm. That's history. It's history when I do my genealogy. So that's what that was one thing my daughter discovered when we got them all, well, when the computers first came out. I gave my son money, and my husband and I, we gave my son, we want him to be on the ground floor. We gave him, go buy a computer. I want you to have one so the girls will learn it too, because they had 2 daughters and he has a wife and stuff. So we did that. So when my granddaughters started school, and they had it in school, bing, 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 bing. Especially Andrea, the one who is a grade school teacher in Great Bend. Man, she just took off. She could tap like a whiz band. I'm a typist. I am not a computer. I have arthritis in my hands. I cannot feel the keys. So I hit 2 keys. I can't tell the difference because I don't feel touch. There's no feeling, and so I don't have that. But my son keeps my computer as simple as possible, so that I do not, when the things I like, I have here in the top. I want to have the weather. I want to have allergy. Yes, I have allergy. And I can tell you, they don't have to tell me, I know when it is. When things are blooming. Right now it's grass and stuff. But do that. And then I have, my son also has a rain gauge at his house. I have one too. I read my rain gauge every day, and I record it at my spot. And but we're just all over, because it could be from here to 2 blocks away, it'll be different. And so I do that at 6 o'clock every morning. I go out on my deck and get my measure and see how much it is, and get my magnifying glass, and I go punch up there the thing, so then I have to fill it in today's date and how much moisture is in there by tenths and stuff. So, but see, that's another hobby that we just do because we enjoy doing things like, my son loves that kind of stuff. But see, my son has gobs of hobbies and such, so it all has to do with our family background and so forth, because he knows they came across the South. Like my line, the Coleman line, started in Georgia, and they came across, and I could travel, taste it all the way. And they mostly settled in Texas before Texas was Texas, while it was still Spain and Mexico. So they were in the first census record that was taken in Texas. So we could also belong to Daughters of Texas, that and stuff. So besides being the DAR, we go back to the American Revolution. Do you, any of your family go back? You never looked?
I don't think I've looked back that far, no.
But see, you get something from each one of them, because when you're looking it up, you can find out what they did. How many children and so forth, occupations, all of these things. See, like today I was telling somebody there today too, I says, yeah, besides being, I being a veteran, my line and my husband's line, I have figured, I've done all of that. I says, Mike goes, father, son, father, son, father, son, father, son, father, son, father, son, back to Joseph and Mary Conkling in Elizabeth, New Jersey, 1762 or 29. And of course, we always say Joseph and Mary.
Oh, that's
Conkling.
great. I love that.
And see, practically all his grandfathers back were Joseph, or all of some other things there, but mostly Joseph. And so, but they used Bible names. Mm-hmm. See, my kids have real names. Judith, Michael.
That's great.
But see, I like that. Have a value, not something, stupid names.
All right, so I have one last question for you. So we're here, partnered with the Eisenhower Foundation. What did you think of General Eisenhower as a leader during the war? What did you think of him, or what did your friends think of him?
You betcha. I got that from Wisconsin. We lived in Wisconsin long enough, a lot of Polish, and so that's a favorite term. You betcha. He's super duper. Yes. We like Ike. And of course, being in the military too, and in the war, yes.
What did you think about him as a president after the war?
Which president, you mean?
Eisenhower, when he was president. What did you think of him then?
Oh, he was a good president. He had enough that in him that rules are not to be broken. See, that's what you kind of need, because some other things, and some of these females and stuff on there now, oh God. Somebody is not reading or listening. See, I liked history. That was one of my favorite. I really liked it because I'm good at memorizing. See, that's one thing at the children's home when I was little. Mrs. Kendall, who was the head matron, gave me my first book. It was A Child's Garden of Verse, because she knew that I loved to memorize poetry because the schools had a program that cost you money to take, but they called it expressive reading. So they would do poetry, but you acted it out. Oh, and you did this. So, and I would do that with a child's garden of verse. Oh, how I love to go up in the swing, up in the air so blue. Oh, do you think it's the pleasantest thing ever a child could do? Up in the air and over the wall and see so wide, rivers and trees and valleys. Oh, then I look down on the grass so green, down on the roof so brown. Up in the air I go flying again, up and down. But see, to me that was a fun way to do poetry. But see, I still do it, and I keep it telling my great-granddaughter. I says, now you have a book. Have you ever learned this one yet? And so we'll go to the book. I know that one. When I was down beside the sea, a little spade they gave to me. What for? To dig the sandy shore. Did you do that?
I don't think I did that, no.
By the shores of Gitche Gumee, by the shining blue sea water, stood the wigwam of Nokomis. Dark behind it rose the forest, rows of firs and the pine trees. And you didn't like Hiawatha? See, this is what kids don't realize, it because it gets that key going. Certain things trigger you remembering things.
Well, it seems like it's worked for you. You definitely seem to remember a lot.
It would?
It seems to have worked for you. You have a really good memory from what I can tell.
Well, I like doing that. See, that's the fun part. And then my cousin and I in Wisconsin, Irene, the ones that I would go back and forth to my aunt and uncles and stuff. She liked to go to movies, and she didn't like to go alone, so I went ahead and went with her. But she would try to remember and memorize every song, and she just crocked the heck out of her. When I could memorize it faster than her.
All right. Well, are there any, before we wrap up, any last statements that you want to tell to the audience watching
every child
this?
should do time in the service. They owe it to their country.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I think the parents should encourage it. There is so much that can offer boys and girls to learn in the jobs. And say with now, they have these all by numbers. It'd be surprising. Hours and hours and hours. All these things. But they would start out with something so crude. Oh, well, that's related to this, and this. Look at the whole thing that you've got to pick from. Why pick on one thing? What are you going to do with it? What does it do for you? Does it make you happy? My son, that one out there sitting, he has a mind that is going continually. He's out there, his pad. He is sitting there drawing, or he's thinking of something, but he's writing a diagram of it and so forth, because he's doing things for me in my house. And so then he has his pad is probably full. But see, that's his mind. But see, he used to work for Exploration Place. He would build exhibits out of his mind. And he got fired because a gal there was jealous because he got so much notoriety. But he doesn't have a degree in that. You don't have a degree in what your mind does.
Wow, that's great. Sounds like an awesome guy.
Did you see Apollo 13?
I think I've seen it, yeah.
Okay, he was at Exploration Place then. They were trying to figure out what kind of a sage they would need to have made. So Mike thought about it. He made a model. They sent it back and forth. Exploration Place did. They liked it. Oh, but we're going to have such and such up there at that thing. Could we have something that removes so that we can get a closer view? And he'd take the model and he would redo it. And they still have his models there. But they fired him. This brain that can figure out these things and stuff because somebody was jealous.
Oh.
And so, see, this is what happens. So what do? To hell with them. And so this is the attitude you pick that you must do if you still want to keep it going.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. All those awesome life lessons.
Oh, well, you should hear some of the questions. The last time I talked to by FaceTime on the they had the reading assignment was the Great Depression, the Dust Bowl, and the war. And then they all knew that her grandma Katie knows all about it because she lived it.
Oh, yeah.
And so, see, I'm Grandma Katie to a lot of kids. But see, I'm used to doing that. And see, they ask me stupid questions, which they're not stupid because they're really curious.
Well, that's great. I'm so glad you're willing to share those stories.
My daughter-in-law, my son's wife, her kids, she just retired from teaching. She's retiring and she's going to go on Social Security and stuff. But she teaches the gifted in maze. When she gets those kids, they give her the kids and she gets them. They play things working on their brain. Think. That's what you have a brain for. Think. Do this. Puzzles that make you think so that you visualize before and after. My little granddaughter, when I play the games with her, she says, "Grandma, I would not do that." So, but she has played those so much with her grandma, her other grandma, that she's a whiz bang. And so right now she is a whiz bang and she's going to go just like her mother did and stuff. And she's working on computer now and she's doing piano.
Wow.
Her daddy is the band master in Garden City, Kansas.
Wow.
And her mother is the specialist in reading and math.
Sounds like you got a
When she
great
was at
family.
a different school near Salina before she went out there. And so that's because they both went out there because he got the band master and so they met in college because they were both in marching band at K-State and stuff. But they just liked it out there and it's good. And that school loves them because they put on the same quality shows as music theater. And he does the directing because he does all the pattern work for the basketball teams and the football games and such. He can do all of that because he did that also at K-State because he learned it at K-State. He was in marching band and it's fantastic. But he'll come up and do the same shows that music theater does. Of course, my daughter and I have tickets to music theater, but we've had them since Wayne came here. When Wayne first came here, we liked him. We've had our season ticket. We have our same seats for over 20 years.
Wow.
But see, that's kinds of things we like. And my husband loved music theater, but when he was sick and ill, he loved music theater because he could go and listen. And he couldn't really see too much. His eyes were bad and couldn't see the kids dancing, but he could hear the rhythm. That is good. That's something I always wanted when I was little. These kids that were taking dance tap, and so I would have loved to have had that.
Oh, for sure.
But see, let kids have chances to do things if you can. Because when my granddaughters were both little, Grandpa and I took them to the Y with us on Sundays because that was family day. And saying, and they liked walking on the diving board. And all, they weren't afraid of the water. They learned if they go down, everything comes back up and stuff. So, and she wasn't afraid to get used to height. And so when the instructor says, Tara, would you like to jump off the board down to me? Okay. And so she did. She's a professor at University of California, Davis.
Wow.
She's a wildlife biologist. She can do anything. She's a brain. Now, see, when something happens to my computer, I says, I want things simple, I tell my son. So, okay, he's thinking too. Because now, when he sees my computer, because he's going to start tonight after he drops me off, to change it back. I like saying simple. I want to be able to go, these 4 things right off the bat. I don't like the rest of that crud because I don't pay attention to it because they talk too fast. I cannot understand them. And that's why I do not watch TV. I can't understand why do they talk so damn fast. It's ridiculous.
Well, you're going to have to tell me.
But, see, they don't say the words correctly, and they go slurring them because that's the way it sounds to me. And these are computers in my ears, but they do not slow down when somebody talks like that. I hear everything. And these have a little thing that hangs out here. That's my hearing right there, and it hears everything. The best government can buy.
Well, I'm glad they're working well for you.
The best government can buy. But they do. If you have good quality stuff, it lasts, it works.
That's right. That's right.
So I guess I'm different. But I am me. But I made me.
Absolutely. Well, I am going to have to...
my son's sitting out there.
Yeah.
He made himself. He can do so many things. I'm going to look at his tablet because he has been drawing like mad out there.
Well, I won't want to keep you from that for too much longer, so...
Okay.
Guess we'll wrap this up now.
Well, I better let you go home, young.
Oh, no, I'm not heading home. We have some more people to interview after this.
You have some more?
Yeah.
How much